Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining this session. Today, I will be presenting our research titled Enhancing Context-Aware Code Search with Knowledge Graphs and Large Language Models, an Experimental Study. This work was conducted by Marlene Goncalves from Valencian International University, Graciela Pereira from Roosevelt University, and myself, Adelina Figueira, representing Simón Bolívar University. Here is the agenda for our talk. We will begin by defining the problem statement and the general objective. We will then review the state of the art and the technologies involved. From there, we will look at our proposed architecture and specific solutions, namely KG chunks and KRAG. Finally, we will present our experimental study, the results and analysis, and conclude with our future work. Let's start with the problem. Developers frequently search for code in Python, hosted in GitHub repositories. A typical query might be how to sort arrays. The goal is to obtain the best code snippet, like sort, to answer that user question. Traditional deep learning approaches train on code corpora from GitHub or Stack Overflow, but often lack context on structural understanding. We aim to improve this using knowledge graphs and the Retrieval-Augmented Generation RAG method with large language models. This leads to our general objective. We aim to develop a solution based on knowledge graphs that represent Python code repositories by integrating LLMs and the RAG method. We can enhance code search and response generation significantly. The background image here illustrates the complexity of linked data, which we aim to harness for better code understanding. Looking at the state of the art, there have been several approaches. Hyman et al. Worked on classified code snippets, while Rice focused on generating Java functions from specifications. More recently, researchers like Liu et al. Have integrated LLMs with graph databases using RAG. However, most existing solutions focus heavily on API documentation or simple snippet retrieval, without fully exploiting the semantic structure of the code, such as class and function definitions, which is where our work focuses. To build our solution, we utilized several key technologies. We relied on Neo4j for our graph database, specifically utilizing its vector search capabilities. We used Cypher query language to interact with the kernel. The graph structure allows us to model relationships, for example, a person node who is friends with another person. Crucially, we store vector embeddings directly in the graph to enable semantic search. Here is the high-level architecture of our system. When a user asks a question, we first generate a question embedding. Then we execute a Cypher query against our Neo4j database. To improve accuracy, we add a post key to the dictionaries returned by Cypher and call an LLM. We experimented with both Gemini and OpenAI to identify the best solution within the Cypher response. Finally, we translate that response into a list and use the LLM to generate a final natural language answer for the user based on the best code found. We developed two distinct solutions to compare performance. The first is called KG chunks. In this simplified model, we have three types of nodes: a chunk containing text and embedding, a document, and a repository. The relationships are straightforward. A chunk is part of a document, and a document is file inside a repository. This treats codes mostly as text segments. The second, more dense solution is KRAG. This approach parses the abstract syntax tree, AST, to create a richer semantic graph. The nodes here include specific code entities: comment, class def, function def, and main. The relationships are much more descriptive. We map how a comment is a comment of a function, how a function is a method of a class, and even the next flow between functions. This allows the retrieval system to understand the structure of the code, not just the text. This slide visualizes the difference. On the left, we see the simple chunking. On the right, the K-RAG model clearly distinguishes between domain execution, class definitions, function definitions, and comments. This structure provides the LLM with significantly better context during retrieval. We implemented K-RAG using two different RAG strategies. First, K-RAG MQLC, modular RAG with one call. This uses multi-queries but sends them all to the LLM in a single call. Second, K-RAG MQMC, modular RAG with multi-calls. This uses multi-queries but makes a separate LLM call for each query. We wanted to see if the extra API calls resulted in a better retrieval quality. The process of creating these graphs is automated. We take the dataset and parse the files using Python's AST. For every chunk, we generate embeddings, mapping text like this function sums x and y into vector representations. We then write this structured data to CSV files and use a BAT file to bulk import relationships and nodes into Neo4j, finally creating the vector index. For our experimental study, we used the Nokia Code Search dataset, renamed to Code Search in our charts, and the Code Search Net dataset. We ran experiments on 10 queries for detailed analysis and extended it to 50 queries for generalization. We also tested different multi-queries configuration, 3, 5, and 10 variations. For embeddings, we compared two models, Mini-LM and STDB, a Steele-Roberta-based model. We evaluated performance using standard information retrieval metrics, precision, recall, and F1 score, while also tracking execution time. For the LLMs generating the responses, we compare GPT-4o Mini against Gemini 1.5 Flash. Let's look at the results with Gemini. The charts here show that the K-RAG solution in orange consistently outperforms the simpler KG chunks in blue. For example, looking at the precision on the CodeSearchNet dataset, K-RAG achieves a perfect 1 compared to 0.9 for chunks. The F1 scores follows a similar trend, showing that the semantic structure of K-RAG adds significant value. Here we analyze the K-RAG MQLC implementation, one call, using Gemini. We tested with 3, 5, and 10 multi-queries. Interestingly, increasing the number of multi-queries didn't always linearize improvement. The STDB model, orange bars, generally maintained perfect precision across the board for CodeSearchNet. This suggests that 5 multi-queries might be a sweet spot for efficiency versus accuracy. Moving to the K-RAG MQMC implementation, multi-calls, again, we see very high performance, particularly with the STDB model achieving 1 precision and recall in almost all configurations. While the precision is comparable to the single call method, the recall stability is notable. However, we must consider the cost of these extra calls. We also validated these results with OpenAI's GPT-4o Mini. The trends remains consistent. The K-RAG MQMC solution with STDB in orange achieves perfect 1 scores across precision, recall, and F1 score for the CodeSearchNet dataset. This confirms that our graph structure is robust regardless of the LLM used. Quality comes at a cost. These slides show the execution time on a log scale for 10 queries. The simple KG chunks in red is generally faster. The K-RAG implementations in green take longer due to the complexity of the graph and the multiple query processing. We see similar timing results here. The K-RAG MQMC approach is the most time-consuming, often reaching over 200 seconds for complex query sets on a log scale. However, given the massive improvement in precision, often jumping from 0.14 to 1, this latency is often acceptable for code search tasks where accuracy is paramount. This summary slide encapsulates the trade-off. On the top chart, precision, you can see the steady climb from kg chunks, 0.14 precision, on the left to KRAG MQMC, 0.63 precision, on the right for the code search dataset. On the bottom chart, time, you can see the corresponding increase in latency. We clearly see that the STDB model orange paired with the KRAG architecture provides the best quality return. In conclusion, our experimental study demonstrates that the best solution is KRAG, specifically the KRAG MQLC implementation with 5 multiqueries using the STDB model and Gemini 1.5 Flash offers the optimal balance. We found that modular RAG improves the results significantly, but simply adding more multiqueries, for example going to 10, does not guarantee better results and only increases costs. For future work, we plan to optimize costs further. We aim to use the KRAG and QMC implementation with 5 multiqueries using STDB, but switching to OpenAI's GPT-4o mini model to reduce operational expenses while maintaining high accuracy. We also plan to expand our graph schema to better capture object-oriented relationships across different programming languages. Thank you very much. I am now open to questions.